Hey guys, it's TheFrXion here, or Tiger Tank 12, have been call me, I don't really care. Welcome back to World of Tanks related content, where we are today talking about the 116F3. You might be thinking, what the fuck is a 116F3? Well, I don't know exactly either, but it's supposed to be another Chinese tank coming to World of Tanks in the near future. And I have the feeling that the Chinese tech tree has become the new Soviet tech tree because the Soviets constantly were getting new tanks, and now the Chinese are constantly getting new vehicles. So the 116 F3 is a tier 10 heavy tank, and we are going to take a look at some of the statistics. Now, obviously, we don't know a lot about this vehicle. We just know that it's on the super test and that the HD model actually is already quite detailed. This is the tank that you are currently seeing on screen. We don't have any more pictures than that because it was just released today, and you can see that the turret somewhat kind of resembles the Czechoslovakian, or is it the Polish? I think the Polish heavy tank, the 50 TP, if I think about it. We don't know anything about weak spots or things like that, so we have to be very cautious with calling this overpowered, balanced, or whatnot, because this is still very early days. All characteristics are still subject to change. So, this tank looks like it will have a 130mm gun. You can see that from the 530 Alpha. That's usually what you get with a 130mm gun. 266mm of penetration with AP shells, 325 with APCR shells, and you have 65mm with the high explosive shells. All in all, doesn't scream to me that there's any big problem. You do not have any heat, which is kind of weird for a Chinese heavy tank at tier 10. Usually they run around with heat, and this is probably going to be quite a, well, yeah, it's going to be a pretty bad thing to be running around with APCR as premium ammo at tier 10 nowadays. As a heavy tank, you usually do really need the heat when you go up against those super heavily armored vehicles. Reload time is quite interesting because the main feature on this tank is that it is an auto loading vehicle. What you can see right here is 32 seconds for a full reload, and you have 3 shots in your magazine. And every single time you try to fire, again, it will take you 3.75 seconds to reload the second shell or the third shell into the barrel, and then to be able to fire all 3 of them. So you have to at least wait, yeah, you at least have to wait 7.5 seconds in total with the 2, or if you want to fire the 3 shots consecutively. Aiming time, it's not that great, 2.7 seconds. Dispersion, not that great either, 0.42. I think Wargaming want to tell us that this is a close range fighter, a vehicle that is supposed to be in your face, because the dispersion values are quite bad. The aim time values are also not the best. Gun elevation, you have 8 degrees of gun depression, which you can work with, so certainly 20 degrees of gun elevation, 42 rounds in total, and you have 4 crew members. So mobility-wise, this tank, well, doesn't look very fast to me, 35 kph max speed, but it actually has some quite interesting reverse speed. 25 kph in reverse is that's quite fast. That's on the level of light tanks that are way lighter and have way less engine power. 840 horsepower. The specific power to weight ratio is at 14.5 horsepower per ton. I think you can work with that. With a turbo, you probably get this tank in the area where it is a lot more enjoyable, at least for me. But you can see the hull traverse, the turret traverse are both tragic. 23 degrees per second hull traverse. Oh my god, you're going to be asleep before you've turned your tank around. You have 2250 HP, and probably the very interesting part right here is that the armor is indeed very strong. 195 at the front. You do seem to have quite an exposed lower plate though. 120 on the sides, so side scraping will be probably not a problem with this tank. 60 on the rear, which obviously we're not going to talk about because the rear of the tank usually well, it doesn't have a lot of armor, so 60 millimeters should be okay. 300 millimeters at the front of the turret, but we don't know the exact figures depending on where you shoot. There is a cupola, and it looks like that it is elevated a little bit, but it could also just be the weird perspective we have right here. 180 on the side, 60 at the back. As I mentioned, the turret kind of reminds me from the side a little bit of the 50 TP. View range, this tank has 400 meters base view range, which is very good, and is kind of Wargaming's way of balancing these very heavy tanks, these large tanks, that they at least can still fight back when they don't see anything, which I think is kind of counterproductive, because light tanks on these maps that we currently have in the game already are not doing fairly well because the maps are too small, and since all of the heavy tanks have at least like 430-40 meters view range with consumables, right, it kind of, destroys the purpose of having a light tank. Just my opinion. Either way, we don't know a lot about this tank. We don't know if it's broken, if it's balanced out. The characteristics look fine by me. They don't look very broken. This is the first Chinese auto-loading tank, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I'm not really sure if we need this. Like, as always, I'm probably too critical. I've thought about several different vehicles that we've seen. Do we really need them? I'm not sure when this is coming out. Is this going to be an event vehicle? Is this going to be another line? This is not the new Chinese heavy tank line, right? The 116F3. Does it have rocket propelled acceleration? I don't think this is it. So this is a complete different one. It could be for a Clan Wars reward or something like that, a big event. I don't know, these bloody events where you have to put together your tank or something like that. Either way, I'll keep you updated as soon as we have more news on the 116F3. Just keep in mind, this is another vehicle that is coming. Here you get some information. It's nothing too crazy. The only thing that's quite nice is probably the autoloader. That's for all of the Chinese tank fans, probably for the people who play on the Chinese server. This tank is probably already running around there somewhere. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, have a good one.